Well, what's up, everybody? We're back with another review of Rings of Power, Episode 7. This one's called The Eye. I don't... Why? Did I mean, like, legitimately, did I miss something?
I mean, I guess it opens up with on Galadriel's eye.
Is that...
I guess they're like, hey,
is it just,
you know what? Let's call it the eye.
Yeah, it's just like the rest of the show. It's a bunch of references that don't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. This is the problem. You bring that up. It's funny how bad the writing is, and we say the writing's bad. The story, the plot just doesn't flow. It's like thing A just magically appears so that thing B can happen, but there's nothing that caused thing A to happen in order for thing B to happen. And so it just happens that way so that the plot can progress. It's not natural. We'll get into it more, but that's one of the main things that I had a problem with in this episode.
So you're right. It does open on her eye. Do you think that's really, dude? This is so frustrating.
Oh, you're gonna share the screen with me?
Oh yeah, I can do that. This is so frustrating. This show opening up on her eye, and this is the thing. This is the thing I've been waiting for since the last episode, is to wonder how they were going to explain all of this. And it turns out that their answer was just to not explain it.
Like, some people die, some people get killed from the ash in their lungs, get their legs blown off, and things like that. But other people, nothing. Like, why?
Oh, that's right. That one person did have like a missing leg, and I'm like, y'all. And I can't decide if they were confused about the time, like the writers themselves or the people, the directors or whoever. They were confused about how all this works. Like, did they plan it so, okay, this volcano is going to go off magically just for reasons. Like, this is such a prime example of don't think about it. Just consume, because
just because of an expansion of gas from the steam from water,
and
that caused Mount Doom. We get an origin story of Mount Doom. In this episode, we get the origin story of Mordor.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about it on the live stream for Monday. I found like this 3-minute clip from Mount Vesuvius when Pompeii got erupted. When Mount Vesuvius erupted and Pompeii got completely wiped out because of it. A very similar situation, actually. Almost as if that was a reference they were trying to go for in the show. And those people got buried under quite a bit of ash. Yep. Like, the city was lost. Like, people dug up the city. This should not have been a thing. Everyone should have been dead. Like, there shouldn't have been, like, there's a horse, like, she gets up and there's this horse on fire and it's like kind of on fire, which, let me see if I can find, where is this? There it is. Look, it's like, it's the back of the horse. It's kind of on fire. No big deal.
Yeah. She's just looking, man, this
little move,
first off,
she's like,
Doom, to be fair to them, Mount Doom is a little bit more of a magical volcano than it is necessarily just a...
Bro, to be fair to who?
Yeah, right.
It is a volcano. It had its own weather system inside of it. There was lightning coming out of that ash and fire that was headed for all of those people.
Dude, what I was going to say, though, is that what causes their eruption is this intricate tunnel system that the orcs built, and then they have to get this sword to release the dam. I'm like, they couldn't have just destroyed the dam? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just seems like a dumb way for the origin story of Mordor. Yeah. And this is one of my problems with prequels, is that that the writers have to be aware of. It's, there's so much you already know, like them trying to tease Isildur's dead. Like, it's not dead.
It's so stupid.
Like, why are you teasing that?
Dude,
it just seems like
crying.
A dumb tease. Yeah. You tease, at least if you're going to do that, tease someone else. But we'll get there anyway.
Yeah, Elendil's ugly cry.
The only woman who cries in this show is Galadriel. All the men they show cry.
Oh, no. All of the women in this show cry. They all
They
cry.
do?
Yeah. Every single one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
I must have missed it then.
You missed when Duran was crying.
Yeah.
When
That's exactly what they've done.
Elendil was crying.
You know how we talk about all the time how we brought up in other things we reviewed to where we've had positive criticisms of critiques of like Arcane and other TV shows and movies, but where we criticize bad writing when regarding how a male character is written or a female character, all the male characters in the show are written to prop up the female characters. So
especially
the female characters are written at the expense of the male characters, and the male characters are all incompetent. They don't know, like the women know they're not strong. Freaking, what is it? Isildur has to ask Tarmiriel to help him lift up this building or this destroyed, we'll get their roof or whatnot that caved in, and it's like the Numenorians are strong.
That's the thing, is that they just decide. So we've talked about this before, but Payne and McKay have said like, oh, go back to the books. The Numenorians are just humans. They have no, as far as this show is concerned, they have no special. The first thing that came to mind was special abilities. There's nothing particularly special about them. Yeah, they are no different than the Southlanders.
Yeah, well, in the show, guys are goons. I mean, I don't know if you saw that recent. There's been another article that came out from them, and they were basically they didn't genuinely address any of the criticisms. To summarize the argument, it was this from them, like when they're addressing the arguments of the dwarf wives and the Rings of Power not having any beards, elves having shaved heads or short hair, Galadriel acting too, prideful, masculine, and that she never went to Numenor. The costumes look too new, and then the show's pacing has been too slow. That's what they were addressing, right? And maybe some others, but essentially, all they said was, "We know Tolkien, not you guys." That's it.
Yeah,
and their inexperience in writing everything, leading shows tremendously. They do not understand Tolkien, and they keep trying to say that they do, but really what they're doing is when they go to the books, if they actually are going to the books, they're looking at it through a postmodernist lens instead of what the author originally meant.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too about that article, there were a couple things that stood out to me. One of them is that they were in Hollywood for 10 years and no one wanted to pick up any of their scripts.
Hey, good on those people for not.
Yeah. J.J. Abrams is the one who got them the job, of course, at Amazon. And he was probably pretty much like, yeah, they'll do whatever you want. Like, because they're yes men.
Yep.
Apparently, if you are critical of this show, you're fascist adjacent. Because
patently evil too.
And yeah, well, I was getting there. But they said that I can't remember if it was something specifically they said or that was in the article, but it was basically like there are people who happen to have fascist views who liked Tolkien's writings. Therefore, if you're critical of this, you're close to those people. And you're like, what? And this is, man.
That's so disingenuous. That's how like, really? It takes an evil heart to say something like that.
Yeah, and then you get to the later, I think it comes right after that, where he starts talking about how anyone who's like picking the show apart or being like critical of it or whatever is essentially patently evil if they think that what we're doing isn't like faithful to the source material. And it's like, dude, it's not. It's clearly not.
David, do you know what they can do? They can take the Lord of the Rings appendices, rip it out of the book, ball it up, turn it sideways, and shove it up their butt. That's what they can do. Maybe then they'll throw up something that's actually, faithful to Tolkien in some extent. I mean, they're just dumb, man, and trying to, it goes back to don't believe your lying eyes.
Well, and that's the thing we talked about too, where everyone's like, well, if they weren't competent, why would they have been given this project? And it's like, you clearly don't understand how the world works.
Yeah.
It's like being incompetent at something doesn't mean that you can't find your way up the ladder somewhere. It happens all the time.
People fail up in Hollywood.
Yeah, they fail up everywhere. It's not just
Yes,
and
it's
people,
not just Hollywood.
People tend to forget
Politics
that. It's
specifically.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that's like, if you're a yes man, if you're someone who is willing to do whatever a company says, or you schmooze up to the people who are in higher positions and you're decent at it, you can go pretty far. Like, you may never make it to the top positions, but you can get into a very comfortable place, and sometimes you can get into a position where, like, you have a lot of control and you're screwing up a lot of things that you weren't ever prepared for.
Dude, you're right, but they're just so disingenuous. At least engage the arguments in a
they can't do
genuine way.
They can't do that.
Not lumping everyone in, that, oh, if you have any criticism, you're patently evil or you're fascist adjacent. They probably couldn't even define it. They can probably barely spell it. Let's just be real. They probably couldn't even write a good show based off of the idea of fascism. They probably couldn't even write a good World War II show about Mussolini and his rise to power. Come on. Yeah. They're just saying it because they know the buzzwords. That's all it is. This is their marketing department. And I understand why the marketing was so bad, because they probably asked J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, and they said, oh, yeah, show this, and show this. And that's why it was atrocious. Like, come on, these two goons. That's Jeff Bezos' fault, though, and Jennifer Salk.
No, well, that's
Jeff Bezos' fault for hiring Jennifer Salk. Jennifer Salk's fault for hiring these goons.
Well, that's what I mean, that's kind of the thing. It's like, it's not really, like, you could say fault, but, like, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I hope this show bombs and gets canceled and then ruins again, not that I want anyone's livelihood taken away. But J.J. Abrams should not. He can do the visuals and stuff like that for a show and a project. He should not be giving any input on writing.
He ain't doing visuals. His entire job at this point is just to tell people what to do.
Yeah, well, he doesn't need to be writing anything.
I was looking up some of the writers for this too, and I thought it was really interesting because everyone on IMDb who has a writing credit for this, apart from one of the women who's written for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which
Jennifer,
are considered
Hudson.
Yes.
What's their name?
Yeah. I think that's right. They all have hardly any credits to their name. Yeah. And J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay are both working on movies or something right now. They're in like the post-production work for, I think it was movies. It was hard to tell because they're incompleted projects, so they don't have like a whole lot of information about them. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, that makes sense. I mean, these guys wrote a majority of the show. So they're the showrunners, but they're also writing a lot. Like, they're heavily, heavily, heavily involved in this. So it's not just like they're on the producer's side where it's kind of like they're funding the project or doing anything like that. They are very involved in this.
Yep. And excuse me real fast. Let me correct myself on Jennifer's name. Is Jennifer Hutchinson.
Okay. So
she only wrote, in her defense, she only wrote one episode.
Yeah.
So wrote. I'd hop out.
Yeah, wrote, quote unquote. Maybe she even knew. And because you'll get, so this is the thing that a lot of people don't know. So you get writing credits for stuff even if what you originally wrote hardly makes it to the screen.
Yep.
I remember, I can't remember who it was, but one of the guys that helped write American Ultra. I don't even know if you remember this movie. It was,
yep, I do. With
Eisenberg and
Kristen Stewart.
Yeah. So that movie had originally had a slightly different plot. They essentially changed the way the characters were going to look, and they made it a lot more. I guess the executives would say would be like palpable to audiences, quote unquote, mm-hmm. Which basically means they made it more boring. Mm-hmm. So you get credit for writing stuff even if a lot of what you originally wrote doesn't make it to the screen.
Yep.
They've done that with I think like Ant-Man because Edgar Wright originally wrote that, and what he originally wrote didn't make it because he had differences with Marvel at the time.
Yeah.
And so he left, and they brought in another guy to do the project. So this kind of stuff happens all the time. So it's a situation where JD Payne and Patrick McKay are most at fault for everything. It's not a situation of there's a lot of people at fault. It's definitely a handful of people, and the two of them definitely deserve the blame.
Yep. Especially these disingenuous arguments. Anyone who's going to say, like me and you, and then everyone else, that has a criticism of this show, like Men of the West and stuff like that, you're fascist adjacent, and care, everything. It's like, bro, like, kick rocks.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that's just like, okay, it's another way of not approaching the actual conversation.
Yeah, and that should let everyone know their intentions.
Yeah,
they aren't pure, as we've been saying this entire time.
Well, let's get into the episode, and we can do it with this, because you sent me a tweet from, I don't remember the guy's name or whatever, but I know he covers like Tolkien stuff. But he basically was saying that people were nitpicking about the volcano consuming everyone, and how that was
Don Marshall.
I was like, and how people are going to survive that, and it's like, y'all, and it's so funny because never in my life would I have thought that after an episode of Rings of Power I would start looking up stuff about volcanoes, trying to figure out how inaccurate a show was. I get that it's fantasy.
Oh, you're talking about the so what Don Marshall said is called the volcano explosion a nitpick, as you mentioned, and then he brought up the whole Sam and Frodo are literally a few feet from an active volcano. Can we just chill? And that's where I think I was either talking with you or someone else about suspension of disbelief and how there's a spectrum for things.
Well, sure, and it's one thing.
It can take you out of the immersion of the fantasy world, because there's still rules and laws and and stuff that it has to abide by.
When you're writing as a human, you understand things as a human. So if you have people who, or the hobbits, right, are laying next to the volcano at Mount Doom at the end of the movie. Yes, they're close to lava. Yes, in real life, that's probably not a very good situation. But there's enough suspension of disbelief that it's like, you got to understand that there are things that are visually pleasing. There are things that have to look a specific way to work to add tension to it. And you're like, oh man, they're really close to that lava. Like, I hope that nothing bad happens to them. You're not thinking, well, that would probably be too hot in real life. They probably wouldn't be able to survive there very long, which also could actually add to the tension if you are aware of that. It doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, well, I can't believe that they would ever actually survive that. It's completely different than
from a ring that just dropped into the volcano.
Right. It's completely different from a scenario where a super volcano explodes, covers an entire city in fire, ash, and there's literally lightning inside of all of that. And some people die, some people survive, and there's no explanation as to how that happened. Yeah. Because that's exactly what they do in this episode. Those are completely different things.
Two entirely different scenarios, because here's the thing. If everyone survives like we know here, like some people randomly die for whatever reason, and some people live like Galadriel. So now are elves immune to the fire of a dragon? Because that volcano is at least going to be as hot, if not hotter, than the fire of a dragon when they come across one.
Right.
Right. Or fighting a Balrog. I mean, and just we can keep going.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And this is the problem, is that when we talk about, one of the things that you have to establish when you talk about world building is how mechanics work. So if fire, take elves and fire, like you were saying. Yeah. If you establish that elves can be burned by fire, elves can be burned by fire. And then, I wonder, I can't wait for don't you remember in episode 1? Because we haven't seen this yet, right? As far as I know, with people, we haven't seen anyone go, well, you remember in episode 1 where she said, like, when there's evil around, fire is cold?
Actually, we know that elves do die by fire. I'm glad you brought up episode 1, because in the prologue, what do we get? I don't know if we get a dragon actually breathing fire on them, or if there's just fire all around.
I don't know. That seems so that seems so confusing.
Again, it's just this. It's not. I think it's just
they're bad arguments.
Bad arguments.
Whether you're being disingenuous or not, like I think I told you this week too. I searched for good reviews. Someone who was like, this show is great, and like had a detailed explanation as to why. I found people who were praising episode 6 and were kind of stumbling their way through it. I was like, I don't, like, what exactly did you like about it? People were using like fancy words to try to hide, like, you know, and then one of my favorites I saw, I don't know who, forgive me, I wasn't really paying attention to who most of these people were, but there was one, it was like this round table, and these guys were all kind of like sitting there, and they're like, I mean, yeah, that was cool, I guess. And they'd like pause for a little while. It was quiet, and I'm like, y'all do realize this is bad. It's very clear you do, and you can tell it's like people are searching. They are trying so hard to explain why this is good, and it's like, y'all, you're having a hard time because it's not. Now, I can understand that maybe you don't dislike it as much as the two of us do. Fine, whatever. That's not really the argument. It's like, the argument is it's a bad show. It's poorly written. The characters are very underdeveloped. Like,
Tolkien never said that Galadriel couldn't survive a volcano.
Oh yeah,
exploding.
true. Well, okay, sorry, my bad. We're
Jeez,
argument
dude.
over.
I can tell you've never read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I love that stuff, dude. It's so funny.
Maybe you should just try harder at paying attention and reading slowly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so
by the way, during this, there's men, women, like you got a woman over there wandering around. There's
like a zombie.
There's a man that comes crawling through at some point, and there's people, you got to understand, screaming, asking for help, right? And she just, ignores them just to talk with Theo, right? Again, no problem with talking to Theo and all that stuff, making sure he's okay. Never goes to check on the other ones.
Yeah, this is the same thing that was happening at the end of the other episode where and the incompetence that you have of all of the leadership in this show, just like with this was the same thing that we saw with Halo, where you can tell the writers don't know how to properly write leaders, because Galadriel, I would even say Halbrand, even though we know where that's headed. Muriel. I still think they should have done this with Isildur, with Elendil. These are the characters that at the end of the last episode, if you had done this properly, so let's say you wanted to go with the volcano thing and you're trying to do your best, like you have to do the volcano thing and you're trying to do your best to explain how they survived. There's probably a lot that you'd have to rewrite. You'd probably have to have set up the distance of the volcano a little bit more so it makes more sense. But let's say pending all of that, what you would have wanted to do is have all of those characters being like thinking on their feet, and at least one of them being like, hey, the holes in the ground, the holes that all the orcs dug. It's like that might actually be a good way for us to survive this thing that's coming. And you're having all the villagers and all of like everyone going underneath, doing something, right? Rather than being like, get inside the buildings and then showing the buildings explode at the end of the episode. And then everyone's magically okay. It's so irritating, dude.
It really is. And Galadriel still doesn't care about other people.
No, yeah, she's letting all these people
go.
Yeah.
And no one consequential dies that we care about.
Still not. They all have plot armor. In fact, and we can talk about this. So they save here's old dead boy. I don't even know his name.
And that's Atomo, I think, or something like that. I think that's his name.
What's so funny about this? And yes, everyone, it is this orange, by the way.
Breaking news, by the way.
Yes.
I know Captain and Goofy Elf's name. Goofy's name is Medhor. It's a throwaway line, Medhor. They never say Captain's name, but when you watch it with the subtitles on, Captain's name is Ravion, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Just FYI. I meant to text you that this week, but I forgot. So that's their names. But we don't really care about this Doritos guy right here.
This still works. It's the same problem that they have where the music starts swelling and you're supposed to feel so bad about the situation. And it's like, dude, we've spent just slightly more time with this guy than we did Captain and Goofy.
Yep.
And we just don't care. It's a situation of like, anyway, and we move on.
Too many characters and plots going on for the writers to be able to properly handle.
And she's like, soldier, he's gone. And like
then,
none of that. Look, the other thing about this too is that he's so deadpan in this, and he's not reacting either, as if this wasn't one of his best friends too.
Yeah.
It's like you can't have a moment where the two of them are actually. This would have
together.
been a moment to actually have characters grieve and cry or something. And
all this ash is still around them right now. All this smoke and everything. Smoke inhalation's not a factor in this show.
So here's another question for you, because I immediately thought about this. So for some reason, I guess they're looking for people, right?
Yeah.
These characters are so dumb. They're like, let's go into the burning building. And so he's like going through. And here's the other thing. Did they hear? Oh, I guess they're okay.
Yeah, they did hear.
They did hear someone. Okay. I was checking out occasionally.
This town is like 10 buildings.
Dude, it's not. I don't even think it's 10 buildings.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
it's
still
like 5.
wondering how the heck did Galadriel and Theo get separated from the Numenorians?
Yeah, they're in this tiny town.
That's what I mean. Like when I was bringing up the inconsistency in the show, like they don't show what happened for Galadriel and Theo to miss everyone, and it's not like we're talking about a big city here. You know what I mean? And someone's going to say, well, bro, it was just a volcano just exploded and a pyroclastic blast came through. They're going to be disoriented. But how did they miss everyone?
How did they get separated from Isildur too?
Yeah.
He's literally, the thing comes down, right? And he's literally in the building.
Oh, no. What happened to Isildur? Newsflash. We don't care.
I
hope he dies.
Wouldn't you want to confirm that he was dead? Instead of just being like, I guess so, and leaving. It doesn't make any sense. And you're right, it's so stupid because we know he's not dead. Yeah. This doesn't work because we know he's not dead. It would have, honestly, it should have been Muriel if they were going to try to pull this off correctly.
They should kill Isildur off and then have Isildur be the new.
Oh, the new Isildur, yeah. Oh,
Isildur.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Well,
and the Balrog is going to be a female Balrog because we can't have any powerful beings and people in this show that aren't, female.
I also love that when a burning building falls down, there's just random explosions that come out of it for some reason. Like this wooden building. Like what blew up?
Here's the thing too. When I talk about the only strong male character we have is Elendil, but not every time, but a lot of times when we get scenes with him, they're just consistently undercutting. And again, there's no strong male characters for us to relate to, right? Plenty of strong female characters, but even all the female characters, are built up at the expense of the male characters. They know everything. They're better at everything. They did everything first, all this stuff. And it's just poor character writing.
Well, they're telling you
contrast that with Arcane, to where none of the genders are written at the expense of the others.
Yeah.
They're all competent. They're all, smart. They all have their flaws. They all make mistakes, things like that. Not so here.
So we get this random explosion for no reason.
The men are weak in this show.
And Isildur.
Except for Hallbrand.
I guess. Yeah.
Who's going to be, the evil guy.
The building comes down and Isildur is allegedly dead. And his friend doesn't even take the time to find out if that's actually the case.
And then Tarmiriel gets splashed by flaming hot Cheetos.
Yeah, the explosion did that or something.
There were some embers that went. If you go back a little bit, it's just very brief. You really got to be paying attention. All right, so right there.
Oh, so stupid. I cannot even be bothered to care at this point. Why was she not blinded by the volcano? It's that simple, dude. Like you didn't have to.
The pyroclastic explosion doesn't.
Yeah. Again, not only does she survive that, but the thing that gets her is some debris from a burning building falling down. Like, come on.
Man. Now we're back to the psychopaths.
Dude, I audibly groan every time they come on screen at this point. Though I have to admit, this episode had some, and you can tell the show really has lost the mark when this is happening. When you're celebrating the downfall of characters you're supposed to care about. Yeah. We'll get there, but that happens a couple times in this episode. Okay, so we don't have. I heard some people kind of like talking about. I don't know how far Mount Doom is from where they are.
Oh yeah, that's like Mount Doom would be probably 1,000 miles or
You could
more.
figure it out because we know the path that they've been taking based on the map that we're showing, and I'm assuming that map is the actual map of Middle Earth.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now because someone made a.
Of course, did someone already do this? That's hilarious.
Yeah, yep. Dude,
So
it's even more than 1,000. So where they would be at is, where.
No, just give me like
just
roughly.
south of Rivendell.
Oh, heard. Okay.
Yeah, just for your understanding, and then like probably just across the mountains from Lorien, which you're not going to be familiar with, but it's just you have Fangorn Forest. They're on the other side of the mountain of Fangorn, and about just imagine where the Shire is, and you're pretty close.
You're pretty close.
Yeah.
So yeah, from Mount Doom all the way to essentially the Shire, these massive molten rocks went flying.
Okay, let me create that because it's not necessarily close. I was just trying to help you out, but yeah, just south of Rivendell, that would help you out the best.
So
remember when?
Okay, give me like a distance. Can you days?
Yeah, so I would
miles?
say like way longer. I mean, a month or two.
So these rocks potentially flew thousands of miles across Middle Earth, made these little dents in the ground.
They're in between where Rivendell is and Isengard.
Okay. Let's get back to the rocks. So how did they get here? This is like a mega volcano. We're beyond like super. Like what? And it kind of did some damage to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. This
also it has to happen, David, so the plot can move forward.
Yeah, and this also shows that these timelines are all in sync. So the time periods of everything going on are completely screwed up.
No, well, apparently, according to TikTok, apparently we just want our handheld when we're talking about the timeline compression and how nothing makes sense.
Yeah. I need someone to.
You can't just do just a genuine criticism. All we're saying, hey, make it more clear, make it add up more, because when you're doing these scenes, we know they're going across hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. Right.
Well, that's what like context is supposed to do.
People are like, well, about Gandalf heading from Edoras to Gondor, and it's like, yeah, but you get the passing of time in his horse riding scene. You know what I mean? And so
yeah, we are aware that there's a passage of time and that he's there for a long period.
And it's not just happening like this. Whereas in this show, they're teleporting.
It's all going at the same. Yeah. Again, it's not the same thing.
It doesn't make sense because we know the Numenorians are having to travel. They're having to sail thousands of miles to get to Middle Earth. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, then they have to they have to travel 200, 300, 400 miles to get to where Mordor is, right?
Yeah.
But then we got the stuff with Adar that seems to be happening, over a couple of days.
Well, that does. Everything going on in Numenor doesn't seem to be going on for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But
even though we get this Harfoot, the Harfoot journey seemed to have happened over months.
Freaking, we're gonna get to it, but Durin and Elrond mining seems to only take hours.
Gosh.
Like, what is it?
Dude, that storyline just spinning its wheels.
Yeah, it is. Dig, don't dig.
Yeah.
I really
what do they have? Is it mithril? Is it this? Is it that? Oh, it is mithril.
Yeah, the magic.
Okay, now you can dig. Now you can't dig.
The magic rock, dude. It's so lame.
They're gonna go ahead.
I was like, I cannot believe how this show has made Tolkien's writing lame.
Boring. Just boring.
It's like, they took something that's like, it's this specific material that the dwarves were greedy about. You have a reference to it with Frodo's armor, his chainmail, and it's like really cool thing. It's a nice touch to the world that Tolkien created. It doesn't have to be the key to everything.
Yeah,
which is exactly what they turned it into.
Yeah. This mystery that's important to the plot. It
fixes the ooze problem that we're not even exactly sure of. Like they introduced,
what even that's coming from.
They introduced this thing and they haven't kept up with it, and we haven't gotten that many hints about exactly where it's coming from or why.
And why it's only affecting the linden tree, and then
what the answer is? You know what the answer is? They don't know. They don't know.
Yeah. And why it's only affecting the cow and Mordor and, the other little bits of land there, but it's not between there and Linden here. Well, you have to use your head canon to be like, well, I guess it is. Has to be. Yeah,
well, we know it can't be, like, if Halbrand is Sauron, which seems to be, they're making it very obvious unless they decide to go another direction. A couple things.
Well, he's supposed to be revealed next episode,
quote unquote. Like, they're gonna, from what I've heard, it's something along the lines of like, I go by many names, and they're not actually gonna name him.
Of course, that way they can change it.
Well, that's what
season to not actually be him.
Yeah, well, that's what I've been saying is like, I don't think if they have anything done for season 2, it's outlines. Like that Hollywood Reporter. It's like, we have, what did they say? There's a technical term for it, but essentially it's like they have the outlines, they draw out stuff that they want to do. Because it might have been I think he mentioned this, where in the Hollywood Reporter article, they talk about how there's an episode that's going to be like a 2-episode battle. I guarantee you they said that because everyone was super excited about the garbage that was episode 6 because it was fighting and you didn't have to listen to these characters drone on about nothing. So that is going to be a thing for reasons. And that's not, they don't have that done. And so I don't think season 2 is written. I don't think they know where they're going with the ooze plot. You're right. They could, at this point, take Halbrand and just turn him into, like, he could disappear. If Sauron's a shapeshifter, they could, basically, they could make him anyone. Yep. It's this garbage thing that they're doing where it's like they don't have this planned out. The only thing that they know,
they didn't want this season to be about Sauron, yet it's all about Sauron.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Like, we wanted people to sit. They said they wanted people to sit in Tolkien's world, and that's why there's, it's moving so slowly. And I'm like, guys, there's a difference between a slow burn and no burn. Like, you didn't even turn on the oven.
That's why, the spinning the wheels thing is so accurate, because it's like we've barely gone anywhere, and this. What have the hobbits done? What have what is there to have appreciated or? I mean, like, everything that they've done with the hobbits is, and we're going to get to this. There's one line that woman said, it's Lenny Henry's character says in this episode. By the way, I know Nori's name out of the hobbits. Yep.
And Sadok, and then Malva, and then I didn't even realize that Nori had a little sister until this episode.
I just assumed, because I figured it wasn't just a child that they picked up along the way.
Okay.
Because she's been in the episodes, but yeah, I don't know her name. You got
and then that line,
Mystery
I know
Wizard
you're
Man.
Talk about regarding Sadok.
We'll get there.
Poppy is Nori's friend.
Oh, great, cool. So he's trying to heal the tree, I guess, because he seems really stupid, but yet somehow understands everything that they're talking about. I very much dislike the way that they've characterized him.
Yes, not Gandalf. I dislike it too. But next year they'll probably make it some blue wizard or Radagast or someone instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And don't worry, guys. That will still be stupid too.
So, the parents don't even try to stop their daughter from standing under this thing. Poppy has to do it, or excuse me, Nori has to do everything. Like, they don't. And oh man. Okay, so I know, Joseph, I know you have tried to defend the actors in this solely by the it's not their fault. I'm getting to a point where I just can't. There's no hope for me doing that. Yeah. Because just like Isildur in that scene where his friend dies, where he literally is just like dumb. He looks dumb. He looks dumbfounded. Like, there's no emotion to to the situation that's at hand. This is kind of similar where it's like.
But David, it's after Volcano explosion. He has to get out. He doesn't have time to mourn.
Yeah, all these hobbits.
Time to wander around looking for people.
Yeah, this branch comes down, right?
Yeah.
She is the only one who has it. Look, her parents are right here. Look at the way the father is standing. This is a comfortable stance. This is the stance that you use when you're just having a casual conversation with a friend.
Like, he didn't notice it falling down, David.
I don't know if it looks a little off screen for on the recording. But oh wait, hang on, right here. Look at the way. Also, his foot, I guess, is just fine now. Like he's kind of using a stick, I guess.
He was using the staff. Yeah. So,
but the wizard leaves. So like, who's going to carry the cart now? Like they get rid of him in this next scene.
Yep. Like that was his fault that the branch. I mean, he couldn't expect the branch to fall. You know what I mean? It is his fault that the branch fell. But yeah. Oh gosh, I do like. This is the thing. I dislike and like this dwarven plot. You know what I mean? I enjoy the actor who plays Durin, and I enjoy the interactions between him and his Durin the Fourth, which is his father, and Elrond. But the whole plot surrounding them is just boring.
Well, yeah. They seem like perfectly fine actors. This is more of a situation where if you're arguing for Durin, Disa maybe before this episode. Well, so both Durins. There's probably a couple other characters in this. Like some of the older actors in this are perfectly fine actors, and it is a direction thing, and it is a script thing, and they're doing something based on what the script is telling them to do.
Yeah.
So with this plot in particular, like you were saying, it doesn't go. It's just not going anywhere.
I think we don't really get any.
But they screw
I guess you
him
could
up.
say the only strong man is, as far as the dwarves are concerned, is him.
Yeah, but he's an idiot.
I think that's one of the things that we're obviously. I've said it's one of the things we're missing in the show because even all the Numenorians are teenagers.
Yeah. There are hardly any elderly, older people in this show.
Yeah,
you have Elendil,
our age, or in their 40s or something. Just come on, guys. Everyone's a teenager, essentially, with respect here. But, yeah, no, his father I like, but they're undercutting the theme of Khazad-dûm, which when the dwarves dug for Mithril, it wasn't about an altruistic motive. It was they delved too deeply, due to greed, right? It's the tragedy of that.
Yeah. What I really like, and it's become more obvious in this show, unless they're going to pull some crap where the Balrog that we see later on isn't Durin's Bane. And they've done is they said we're making a second age Lord of the Rings show, and this is a couple years before they fight Sauron. In the prologue of Fellowship. Like, that's what they've done. They're like, oh, no, this is thousands of years before. It's like, no, your prologue was probably thousands of years before. And what you've done is you've skipped through time right up until 10. And I'm being rhetorical with this a little bit, but like 10 years before they fight Sauron in the prologue
we still don't know
of Fellowship.
How far along into the second age they actually are. I've heard off screen that they're not on screen that they mentioned this, but that they're 1,000 years into the second age. I'm just like,
oh no,
man.
Dude, no way. The way
who cares about the Balrog too? Like, we already know based off the trailer that it's coming, so it's not this big reveal. You know what I mean?
No, and it's also like just been hanging out down there apparently, unless that leaf is the thing. We'll get there, but like unless that leaf is the thing that woke it up. So Elrond promises like some wood for what was it, like 500 years?
5,000.
5,000 years.
No, 500 years. You're right. 5 centuries.
In exchange for your mithril mines, the elves are prepared to furnish the city with game, grain, and timber from the elder forests of Eredor for the next 5 centuries. 5 centuries, quite a promise if they can keep it. Cool.
Yep.
And he's like, I never made a promise I didn't keep.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm only half elf. And it's just like, cool, man.
That's just a lore dump.
Yeah, I didn't mind. There's, again, it would have to, again, you'd have to like sit and talk about it for a while. But, you have the moment where they're talking in Dwarven and then he's like, oh, you know a little bit of Stone Tongue. And you're like, oh, okay. I was like, that's kind of one of those clever things that people do where where they underestimate a character and the character knows more. He's an elf. And I keep having to say this. These elves have been around for a very long time. They are essentially ancient creatures. Even if you're like 500 years old, you know a lot. You've probably learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the elves have picked up on some of the languages. Clearly they have. They've picked up on the human language. I'm sure that they've picked up on some dwarven over the years.
Well,
he would know. He'd know.
Yeah. Here's my thing is with Khazad-dûm that we don't really get to see. This is supposed to be the peak of the dwarves, Khazad-dûm, right? We don't really get to see that. They're rushing the plot and storyline so far, and we've only seen, one good shot, mind you, of kind of showing the opening of Khazad-dûm, and we got to see the elevator and some halls, but everything seems kind of, even all that small and lackluster.
Yeah.
Not as much grandeur as I imagine how Tolkien wrote it. I mean, Eriador in The Hobbit looks way better than this.
Why?
As far as the design of it and how spectacular
it's big, it's grand. Yeah,
yep.
And that should be the case for the dwarves.
Yeah, this should be far and away above Eriador.
When you talk about, because we've said, or I've had this, well, I say conversation. People have been trying to convince me that Galadriel is supposed to be as arrogant and brash as she is because Tolkien wrote her as proud. Mm-hmm. When I think of the way that pride works with the dwarves, and it being something that was very beneficial for them, but also part of their downfall because greed plays into that. Mm-hmm. When you talk about how they've been mining, they find the mithril, and that being part of the downfall of it's early here. The downfall of their city because of Durin's Bane. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting plot because that adds character to not just one dwarf but all the dwarves, that they have this characteristic and this thing that could be their downfall. In the same way that in The Hobbit, despite how I feel about those movies, you get this idea of how prideful the dwarves are in the things that they've created. You see the
contrast,
city.
Their pride.
Because that's the Arkenstone, is that right?
Yes. Yep. and you get the contrast of their pride to the pride of Thranduil, who is the leader of the Wood Elves, right?
Right.
And so,
but pride doesn't necessarily lead to arrogance. It's this thing where you have to understand and why in kind of this modern time that we're in with writers and a lot of this, words don't have a whole lot of meaning. Mm-hmm. And so, or they're not paying attention to the meaning of the words based on when they were written, because as you and I are both very aware of, if you're not specifically thinking about the time period in which something was written and how words have changed, you are easily going to mischaracterize the writings.
Yeah. Tolkien consistently used queer and gay referring to its original meaning.
Right.
During that time.
Right.
And so, if you were to take it and view it through a modern, our modern 2022 lens, then you come to a completely different conclusion if you weren't aware of its usage then.
Yeah. And I think this conversation, this is why I think this plot in particular, this episode, I mean, it lost me a while ago, but this was sort of the final straw for me where it's like, y'all are getting lazy because his whole talk with him is just a lore dump for people.
Yep.
When Aule created our people, he crafted us of two elements, fire and rock. The rock that lives within us hungers for the eternal, resisting the pull of time, but the fire embraces truth, that all things must one day be consumed. And it's just sort of like, cool, man. And this is like, dude, okay.
And they don't really tell us why during the fourth, his father right there is so against the elves.
Well,
there's no...
Okay, so he's against them mining for the mithril because he knows that the Balrog is down there. But instead of telling anyone...
Does he know that the Balrog is down there?
He knows it's down there.
Or is it he does it because it's so perilous to mine? That's why he doesn't. I just mean,
he says, hang on, he says...
Like even beforehand, I can use my headcanon. I know why headcanon wise, but I mean as far as what the show has shown us, why is during the fourth the old man so against the elves? I just mean the elves in general, just suspicious of them, just wary of them, just
well because But as far as this is concerned, he says, delving into depths beyond the darkness, tempting shadow, rock, and mine to bury us all beneath the mountain. He knows it's down there. He absolutely knows it's down there. I will not risk dwarven lives to help the elves cheat death. So, and this is another problem because they could just go back to the Undying Lands, man. As far as we're aware, they are allowed to go and come back whenever they want at this point.
The writers aren't aware, though.
They must not be.
This whole scene between...
it's exhausting, dude.
Durin and his father fighting, it's just melodramatic. I just can't get invested. It's just melodrama. And so, he's basically like, you expect me to swat my friend's hand away. The fate of his father says the fate of the elves has been decided many ages ago. And
I don't... I get what they're going for with this. And if I gave a crap about any of the characters in this show, maybe this would hit a little bit more.
Yeah.
Or if they worked a little bit harder to give us a threat that made it make sense. Again, because what's really funny, I remember, and this plays into this, talking about Sauron. Someone mentioned in a comment recently that Sauron's character, like Halbrand being the way that he is, makes sense because Morgoth is the one who corrupted Sauron. And I'm just like, dummy, that already happened.
Yeah, and Sauron would not take the shape of a man because he hated men.
So
men.
Sauron, they should not have done this thing where Sauron doesn't exist anymore. If you wanted it to work, it's like, okay, Morgoth's defeated.
Happened to Sauron? After
he
took over Morgoth's army.
Yeah, and he went away to the north to try to heal things. It's ridiculous.
Hid his army.
He should have hid. He could have hid his army. They could have done something where it's like, if he's as powerful as the lore says that he is, and he can shapeshift, and you're trying to do something in the Second Age, it's not beyond a reasonable assumption that he could do that with. He could have caused an illusion to. And I'm trying to do my own headcanon thing with this, where he does an illusion where seemingly he's completely disappeared and no one knows why.
Right.
And they're like, we can't explain it. We do not understand. It's like after Morgoth was defeated, Sauron disappeared. All of Sauron's army is gone. We don't know what's going on. We can't explain why. And
Mystery box.
Sure.
For this show, with what they're doing with
right. But you have this thing where it is a mystery. Mystery, and this is the thing people have to remember, because I've gotten caught up in this with themes. The Last Jedi ruined themes for me.
Yeah.
And so I've stayed away from them. Mysteries are okay. It is okay to have people disappear, enemies disappear, and people can't quite explain what's going on or why it happened. And in fantasy, you have to be able to use bigger, broader things like magic was involved in it. Otherwise, it's really hard, because we've been saying with the elves, it doesn't make sense that Galadriel has this mark that she knows leads to Sauron, and for the last 1,000-ish years, she hasn't been able to figure out that if she turned it sideways and looked at a map, it would show that it was the Southlands. Especially considering that this show tells us that you can get from Numenor to the Southlands in about 12 hours.
I brought the mystery thing up because what you were mentioning is good and great, and I'm sure that's probably what the writers will end up going with. Probably not, though. Who knows?
No, because Sauron's around, the orcs are around. He just disappears. It's the same thing with the volcano. He disappears, and they don't feel the need to explain exactly what's going on, or give us some sort of detail as to what's happening. Give us a little more context to this thing, because they're rush through all this, which is why we've said in the past that it's you have all of this stuff seems to be happening super fast, but then everything that we're watching, it's happening really slow at the same time.
Right.
It's very weird.
It is. And the issue that I'm having with this show is that the entire plot revolves around mystery boxes. And there's nothing wrong with mystery, but it can't be the engine of your story. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
In the sense of every single the main plot, the subplots, the characters, all of it revolves around mystery. That's how you're creating tension and stakes without a natural progression. Contrast it with House of the Dragon, which is popular right now, and you see that natural progression is there somewhat some mystery of what's this character going to do? Damon's a wild card. Who knows how he's going to react in this situation? Yes, there's a mystery, but it's not a mystery box. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not what's this sword that Damon has, and is it going to open the gate to the dam?
Yeah. Oh, the secret dragon eggs that have never been discovered, and it's not that crap.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's not it. As far as I'm aware, Game of Thrones doesn't have any MacGuffins. Red herrings is a different thing. And again, these things in and of themselves aren't bad. They are tools that writers use to craft a good story. The problem is when your entire story is centered around the mystery of a sword, a literal box, a king who, for quote-unquote reasons, doesn't want to mine the mithril, even though you're
king of the Southlands too.
Yeah,
randomly
who
just
is
doesn't get vetted.
Halbrand really? Yeah. Oh my god.
They just accept him. Okay.
They're dude.
It actually probably pretty spot on through real life, because if someone was like, "I'm your king," people would probably just be like, "Okay."
Yeah. So we get the scene between Durin and Disa.
And Disa's like, "Don't listen to your father."
Dude, what I thought was so funny about this is like Disa is now gonna be the downfall of the dwarves. Is that what they're setting up? Because she's the one who essentially convinces Durin.
Dude, I was about to bring that up, man. I'm glad that you did.
I was just kind of like,
she's going to be responsible for the fall. Again, not that Durin obviously doesn't share responsibility in that, but her encouraging him to, mine the mithril against her father's wishes, because we will one day rule this mountain. In this situation, what would have made a lot more sense, especially if you wanted to show Disa in a very positive light, which is what I was assuming they were trying to do in the show. She would have backed up Durin's father, and Durin is the one who's like, no, and maybe he ultimately convinces her. She says, "You know what? It's like, I trust you. You do what you think is best," and that Durin is the one, and that's where his downfall comes from. Because people, I guess in a sense, you could say that her, part of her motives are positive because she's trying to save Elrond's life, and I guess if we use our headcanon, and then what the show says, shown that, she cares about Elrond because her husband had, and then she gets to meet him, but we don't get to spend enough time,
They have not. One of the biggest problems.
Why would she care about? Well, I think even then, I think you can make the argument that she would care about Elrond, therefore her wanting to mine, wanting them to mine the mithril to save his life, which therefore will save everyone else's life. Even though that's completely dumb, because here's the thing. You have to be in extreme close. Did the elves have to be in extreme close proximity to the mithril to be able to live within this show? You know what I mean? Even though there's a Cimmeril in the sky, and the sun and the moon come from the leaves of Teperion and
no, it has to specifically be this magic rock.
Yeah, it's just like, how much of the mithril do you need?
Yeah, this is why if you start thinking about it and again, when you're talking about the lore, because have they?
And wouldn't it be under the ground?
Well, has the show? Yeah, has the show actually given us confirmation of the existence? Well, not the existence of the Cimmerils, because I think they've talked about them, but that there is connection between the world and the Cimmerils being in the sky. Someone would have to tell me, because I don't really want to go back and look.
I know that Elrond talks about his father when he does. I don't know if they specify that specifically.
And
that's Cimmeril.
That's what's important, is because
but they mentioned he's holding a star in the sky. I think
a lot of people will use their lore knowledge to justify the show, because this is the thing that people have to be aware of, which is why I'm glad. Like, honestly, this is why I'm glad when we talk about House of the Dragon and when we've talked about Rings of Power, that I don't have huge lore dump knowledge about the show, because you can't just target the hardcore lore fans when you're making $1 billion show. And this is something I've said, I mentioned this to you, and I should say this now because I'm going to forget if I don't.
Okay.
It's so funny to me when people are like, we'll get comments where like, well, the show's all right. Or like I like to I kind of watch it. It's like on in the background. I'm like, this is a $1 billion show.
Yeah.
Just all right. And being
Doesn't
in the
cut
like
it.
no, it doesn't cut it. You had all of this money, you had all of this time. Like you have a property that people like that fans adore and love that yes, are willing to make are willing to bend if you tell a proper and good story and you're respectful of what Tolkien did with his writing.
And not attack them.
Yeah, and not
That
attack
doesn't seem
people
like
for criticism.
Just to let people know, that does not seem like a winning strategy to attack your fans.
No, to attack people that well at this point they know they've lost lost like a ton of dude. I guarantee whenever they finally get the next season out, it's going to look cheaper.
Apparently, it's going to be. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
it's going to take them 2 years to film it. I'm like, thank God.
Rewrites.
Yeah,
they're in trouble.
Yeah, thank the Lord, because
it shouldn't take that long. The script for season 2 should have already been done.
Yep.
They should have started filming season 2 as soon as season 1 was done. Like if they were this confident.
I sent you that article about the business analyst who I think he watched like episode 1, I think maybe 2, and then 3 and 4, or I don't think he watched all 4 of them. I think it was just a couple of them, and then he fell asleep either watching 4 or 5, and then wouldn't watch the rest of them because it was so boring, and because busy as well, but didn't want to take the time to go watch it because it was so boring.
Yeah.
And he was like, I think he said something around like 88% to 95% of Amazon Prime members aren't interested.
Okay, so I wanted to pull this up real quick. I took a picture of this the other day because I thought it was really funny. This is from last week after episode 6 came out.
Okay.
It says, oh God, y'all stop with these puns. It says, now we're Tolkien. After 6 glacial hours, the Rings of Power is finally worth watching.
No.
Dude.
I wouldn't make that argument. Don't waste your time.
Y'all. Like, that's not okay. 6 hours of what he is describing as glacial, meaning it's going nowhere, like we're saying, spinning its wheels, it's boring. Yep. You can't go 6 hours, have mid to terrible fighting. I mean, I would say it's terrible, but I know people are out there like, oh, see, it was episode.
Yeah. At best, it's average. Let's just say that.
Yeah. If you break it down, it's not. It's garbage. 6 hours is unacceptable, even if it was the best action sequence to ever be created. Yep. And this is the thing. It's like, oh, well, what if they fix season 2? What if season 2 is great? It's like, am I just going to tell people to skip season 1?
Yeah, they need to just completely start from scratch with season 2,
bro.
If they do it and just have, like I mentioned, Galadriel wakes up from a dream and mentions to Celeborn, I had a terrible nightmare in it. I was as evil as Sauron, but dumber.
They would have to work something in there that's like you don't have to watch season 1 to get back into the show. That's not good, guys. That's not acceptable for $1 billion show. It's not. If you were, dude, oh my God. It's like people need to take this into their own work setting and be like, if you did something that cost your company, because I think the season, if we're taking out how much the rights cost,
$768 million.
Yeah, you're talking multi-million dollars. If you did something for your company and you had this massive backlash for it after spending that much money, would you expect to survive? Would that just be acceptable? Be like, oh, well, season 2, we'll just move on and do something more. No. It's like, oh, my Lord. Come on, dude. Y'all. Like, all right. Back to the show.
And then, hang on. I need to finish my nightmare scenario. Then Celeborn transposes into Sauron, being like, no, you're still in it. And we just get more of the same. Oh, man. And then I think, you know what? I will praise them for this. At least they did some body language where Durin looks at Elrond and goes like that. And then Elrond looks at him and then puts his head down. And they don't have to say, my father said no.
Yeah.
We're not getting much of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's that, hey, congratulations. You actually you were doing some acting. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like
they wrote it well to where they didn't have the actors literally say, "I'm really sad. My father said no, and that makes me sad. Does it make you sad? It makes me sad too."
Gives him back the mithril.
No, there's just no. Again, I go back. No strong men in the show to where it's like, they're great fighters and they're dangerous, and it goes back to what Jordan Peterson said, right? They're like a monster, but they're in self-control. You know what I mean? And
Arondir is the closest thing that you get, but he's a completely blank slate character. His entire character is surrounded by, I like pretty lady who heals people.
Yeah, because Elendil can't fight.
No,
we got that in the last episode. And he sucks.
They could have, again. We talked about it back in whatever episode it was where Galadriel beats up the teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
They could have done a thing where it's like, well, these are young, untrained volunteers. Like, why don't you take on someone? And again, establishing the Númenóreans as being strong, establishing them as fighters. They haven't done any of that.
Nothing.
It's just, it's so, dude, it's just lame.
It is.
And
everything is just lame in the show.
He's like crying about the situation, and then, oh my gosh, the leaf is healed.
The mithril, and the mithril is really close to the leaf of ooze.
So, this is why we were talking before. It's like, so does the mithril just have to be in the pockets of every elf in existence who's in Middle Earth? And if they hold on to the mithril in their pocket,
because the ooze goes away.
Yeah, do they never have to return to the Undying Lands? Like, if this is the case, why didn't any of the other elves who decided to stay in Middle Earth just do this?
Yeah,
like
because David, you can only mine it in Khazad-dûm. You definitely can't get it from Númenor, where it was also mined, and elsewhere. It was also mined in Aman.
Maybe that'll be a plot point. Oh, look, there's Mount Doom in the distance, and here's the village over here. And somehow,
I'm telling you, in
all
another
those
episode,
hundreds of people got separated.
Before episode, what was it? The last episode of Mount Doom erupted. Before that, in the previous episode, it's way further away.
I guess.
But not just mean, not in this episode and the last episode, but in previous episodes, they showed Mount Doom further away from the village then. And then we get this whole, why did they get lost scene? And Theo's like, what are you bothered about? It's not your fault, Galadriel. You were right all along.
It is her fault, though. And Elendil has probably one of the best lines in the show so far, where he's like, I should have just left her in the ocean. It's like, yeah, dude.
Yeah. And we get told later on in the next scene, in a later scene, that Celeborn is lost, implying that, maybe he's dead, maybe he's not. But no, what really happened is Celeborn realized how much of a jerk his wife was and separated. And it's like, peace.
Yeah.
See you later. Celeborn is the only character with any real wisdom in Rings of Power, because he upped and ran while he had the chance.
Yeah, he faked his own death to get away from her.
Not all who wander are lost, except for Celeborn.
So let me talk about this. Why? Okay, first of all, so she gets like blinded, right?
Yeah.
She looks fine. And she looks like she's overacting, just like really trying to keep her eyes open extra wide.
Yeah. To show that she's blind.
Like,
the directors did her no favor.
It should have been because of the volcano. They should have just gone with
This is how blind people act.
Yeah.
They definitely don't blink and stuff.
It's ridiculous. And I guess technically, because they say like, she says everything looks like grayish or something. I guess.
This is like she's trying to fake that she's not blind. That's right.
Yeah,
I forgot. Okay.
She does say, but the thing is that if you got hit by that and it was enough for you to have gone blind, your eyes would be scarred.
Yes.
There'd be extra damage. There's just like
and probably like the embers in that scene briefly that you see.
Yeah.
When you slow it down, I mean, I don't know if it properly shows that engulfed her face. But I mean, a ton of embers go like right here and into her eyes. So you would think even around her eyes, you'd see some burn marks and stuff like that. But we really just don't get anything.
Yeah. And, looking past at this point, how everyone got so like how 300 Númenóreans got separated in that area. It's like, what? What?
With like all of 8 buildings.
And they were all hanging out in a tiny town. I don't.
Yeah.
Dude.
How did Galadriel and Theo just miss it, dude?
I can't take it. I can't.
Oh, man.
Dude, the logic it's killing me at this point.
I don't think I've ever been, I don't think I was even this tired of reviewing Halo. You know what I mean?
I was.
You were like, I feel like this is worse because it's longer.
Oh, it's definitely longer for sure.
And so Theo's like, I've killed orcs before. And then Galadriel's like, when I was your age, there was no such thing as orcs.
Yeah. And I love how she's known as like Orcs Bane or whatever. And then she talks about how the orcs really aren't that bad. And like, maybe we shouldn't be killing
Even
them.
though she was just, threatening Adar in the previous episode to torture and murder them all.
And now, how many have you killed? And she says, many. And he says, good. I would not use such words. Why not? It darkens the heart to call dark deeds good.
And here's the thing. The Galadriel in this episode is the Galadriel we should have gotten from the beginning. But that doesn't make sense with how they've characterized her.
Also,
Take
not with
orcs.
The orcs are murderers. They literally enslave her people, and I assume humans. And like, there's no... Stop trying to do this thing where it's like, well, the orcs really aren't that bad. It's like, if you believe that, then it's totally fine what happened with Mount Doom. Just let them have their land. Everybody leave them alone.
Yeah.
Like, because you're clearly...
The orcs have good intentions. They just want a home, bro.
I also, because we get some shots of the orcs in this coming up too. Where were they during that fight? Like, why are there these little pockets? I thought they were all part of like Adar's, and then like Adar shows up really close to the end of the episode, and it's like, wait, what happened? Like, he escaped.
How did he escape?
I thought they all went in to fight. Up. Yeah, it's... How many orcs does he have? Like,
well, here's the thing. He was in the last episode at the end. He was chained up, and then magically he's not chained up, right?
Yeah, anymore. He gets out
and he escapes. But yet, what did he just like run extremely fast to get? Like, what happened? And then, all the orcs it seemed like pretty much got wiped out by the Numenorians, with the exception of the few that were in the tavern and some of the prisoners. But now it seems like there's more than what was in the show, than what happened. And wouldn't the orcs, some of the orcs have gotten killed too? They're not
thinking about this stuff. It's clear that they're just kind of, what's really funny is that article, that Hollywood Reporter article.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that they jabbed the original or like season 8 of Game of Thrones for is that some Starbucks cups got left in scenes that they had to digitally edit out of them, which of course is a terrible thing. Like, I'm not defending season 8. Your logic in this show, to me, is worse than some dummies leaving a Starbucks cup on a table in that. Like, you can't write. I mean, don't get me wrong, neither could D&D really when it came down to it. But it's like, at least Game of Thrones had a strong start.
Yeah.
You got a handful of good seasons and then some decent stuff up until they pretty much ran out of book material.
Somebody was making the argument that Game of Thrones didn't get actually good until season 3. That season 1 wasn't that good, and I'm like,
if season 1 and 2 were not that good, why did you keep watching it? If it was for your specific entertainment, right? You're not reviewing it. You're not trying to break down the episodes. You're not trying to talk about any of the characteristics of like why a show is good versus why it isn't. Whatever the case may be. If you're just watching it for entertainment, how did you get past the first season if it didn't get good till season 3? And this is the thing, is that a lot of people, right? And this is kind of where we get into the topic of normies versus people who are really like paying attention to a lot of the details of what's going on with a show. It's the thing that separates like Mahler from your average moviegoer / TV watcher, because he's looking for specific things, and there's a lot of stuff that he really cares about when it comes to like cinema and that medium, versus someone who's like, well, season 3 of Game of Thrones had the Red Wedding, therefore the first 2 seasons aren't good and season 3 is good.
Yeah.
And you're like, that, and because I'm telling you that if you were to ask that person, if you're to dive in, okay, why? Why are season 1 and 2 not good, and why is season 3 when Game of Thrones got good? And you ask them those questions, I guarantee you it would pretty much come down to, it's like, oh, well, I really like the Red Wedding. I thought that was really great. It's like, well, you're not wrong about that, but you are wrong about season 1 and 2 not being good, or that it didn't get good until the third. Like, where are these arguments coming from?
People trying to defend Rings of Power that likes it,
just picking stuff out of the air without thinking about it. I don't. All right.
But anyway, this is when Elendil finds out that Isildur is dead, and instead of being a good father, going back and checking on his son, he just stays.
Yeah.
And leads the queen.
And if with Elendil in particular, if they had done better with his character to show the strength that he has, to show the leadership that he has, these moments where he's comforting Muriel, and later on when he's upset about his son, even though that moment's really, it's kind of cringy, just the way that the way that they shot it. Not about crying over his son. I don't have a problem with that. And honestly, if this show was done differently and it wasn't like a mystery about what's going on with Isildur because he falls under the fiery rubble and then you don't see him anymore despite knowing what happens, and they had figured out a better way to do this, where it's like, we know he's alive, but his father doesn't, so we're just following it through the perception of showing how much his father cares about him. A totally different scenario. I'd be fine with him mourning what he believes is the loss of his son. Yeah. That's not what this is, though. No. So, because these moments, like, you can tell, there's certain like little moments here and there where you can tell Elendil's actor is pretty competent. Yes. It doesn't shine through in this because the show sucks.
It really does. He doesn't deserve to be in this. He doesn't deserve to be in this show because of how bad the show is. Yeah. And I also think the same way with Durin's
must have been a good paycheck.
And also the I can't remember her name, but the lady who plays Disa. I mean, she's she's fine too.
She's doing what she's been told to do.
As far as
despite all the interview stuff and just how
again, I think that comes from the line of like, guys, I truly, when it comes to an actor and actress, I really don't give a crap about your political stuff and everything. Just I think
or what you're trying to read into the story. I mean, even with Bronwyn's actress, where she's like, what was the thing she said? She's like an activist or whatever.
Yes.
And you're like,
of sorts.
What? Like, I don't get that from this show at all. And that's why Hollywood needs to stop letting their actors and actresses talk about this stuff. Like, shut up.
Well, I think too, they just need to be able to, in their contract, be like, you can't use social media. You can't do interviews without us giving you a script.
Yeah. As long as you're contractually obligated into this. And this is the thing. It's like, go back to just acting. It's not that we don't, you are allowed your opinions. All right. Yes. It's not what we're talking about. It's like, but when you go out there, you're attacking fans, you're saying a lot of things where, it's that Michael Jordan quote where it's like, Republicans buy Nikes too, or whatever. Yeah. The idea being that if you're trying to sell a product, you want to maximize your audience for that product. But if you're alienating half, or in some cases even more than half of your audience, it's not the audience's fault. And I guess these companies just haven't lost enough money yet where it's coming into play, but people are tired of it. It's going to happen eventually. People are going to start coming up and being like, I just want content that isn't hyper political, and people don't understand that when they say that they mean when they're taking modern politics and putting it into everything, right? Yep. It's not that politics aren't
has
involved.
To reflect the world we live in today. Yeah. And what they really mean is everything has to reflect the LA zip code and our thoughts and ideas and
good old Hollywood
beliefs.
And that's the thing is, like, some of my favorite movies involve political intrigue, or Game of Thrones is political, but it's not political in the same way.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing is that I really don't need moral lessons from those where did the Me Too movement start? In Hollywood, right? Mm-hmm. From those who covered up the abuse of men, women, and children, right? Like, miss me with that. So I don't really.
Me Too at this point was basically like, as women, we just want to be able to do the same thing that Harvey Weinstein did.
Yeah.
It's not.
I think the problem that happened with that is that I think there were some genuine cases.
Oh yeah,
and the genuine cases were overshadowed by the bullcrap.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They suckered certain people into that movement who had genuine cases of abuse for their own reasons,
purposes.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of people took Me Too and jumped into positions of power because of that. And that's not to discredit what happened in Hollywood. Like, if you've listened to any of our other content, you know clearly how we feel about that industry. I mean, it's like that line from Star Wars at Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like hive of scum and villainy. Like that's essentially what it is. It's just a situation.
We could go into more.
It's never as simple as, yay, they did a good thing, now everything is fixed.
Keeping people who were hiring people who were accused of CP and found guilty, by the way.
And they're still there.
Not just accused, but found guilty and still working.
If you think they got all of those people who are abusive and doing a lot of that stuff out, you're naive to what's going on.
There's a rumor of someone who worked on X-Men that it was, you don't bring your kids around them.
Oh yeah, the guy who did the third. It's not a rumor, dude. They know. It's not Bryan Singer. I think. Is it Bryan Singer? Hang on. Give me 1 second because I have to look this up. Tell us about the Hobbit. Now that we're back to the Hobbits, and I'm gonna look.
So now that we're back and we got that scene afterwards, we're getting this huge scene between not Gandalf and female Frodo, and all it is her handing him an apple. Whoop-de freaking do. And then I think it cuts away here and we get the flower growing out of the tree. We don't really care, guys.
He leaves.
Yeah.
You can see, right here, you can see his name was Brett Ratner, by the way. And Brett Ratner, it wasn't just rumors, like they knew.
Yeah.
Like there's articles about stuff. Oh, and you have freaking what's his face from House of Cards doing that crap too.
Yep. Oh, Kevin Spacey.
Yep. It's
and all his witnesses for his trial just happened to die. Yeah. Okay.
We get the scene from the trailer. There were a lot of trailer shots in this episode, especially the Hobbit stuff.
Oh, I'm gonna give you an apple.
I guess that's
supposed to
send
you on your way.
It's like signifying that she's forgiven him for her screwing up.
Yeah, and then we get the scene of female Frodo saying, I can't be anything in this patriarchal, heartless society. And she just looks up at the moon, and then it cuts to Galadriel, and this is when Galadriel says that I lost my brother Finrim and Finrod. And then she says, I also lost my husband, Celeborn, which she probably could have used to help her out.
Yeah, Celeborn was his name.
And then when they bring it up, it's that he's degraded in that I chided him before he went off to war because he looked like a silver clam because his armor didn't fit. Like, what?
Well, okay. So here's the thing.
Oh, man.
You can see the intention of what they're trying to do because this is one of the first times that they've actually tried to humanize Galadriel. But because everyone already hates her so much, and because she's poorly written, it's like, we don't care. It's like, because you see the way that she treats people, and then you go, wait, why were you such a douche to him before he left for war? Like, what's your problem?
That's the same way you treated your husband right before he was going to battle. No wonder why he left, even though his armor didn't fit. He was probably like, war's the perfect excuse to leave. So, and again, I think like with better writing, that could have been handled better as well, to where she was like, before he went off to war, which is what they're getting at. We had a disagreement and everything. And then, I didn't see him after that and whatnot. But here it just kind of falls short because of what you just said, that we have this entire character of this woman who, doesn't care for anyone around her. She just wants to get her way. There has been no redeeming quality about her. And now we get this scene and it just falls flat.
Yeah. And it's
because now we can kind of understand why, Celeborn just left.
And exactly. And then Theo says, you didn't intend for this to happen. I gave power to the enemy, so that makes me responsible. Her response is not, well, you're a child. Right? Obviously, it should be a little better written than that, but that's my own personal, golly. And she says, some say that is the way of things, but I believe the wise also look upon what is in our hearts. So there are two things about this. Galadriel already believes that she is humble and that she is wise.
Yeah.
A lot of other people don't believe that about her. Dude, I'm telling you, everyone's like, they're going to turn her around. She's going to become the Galadriel that we know. And I'm like, I don't know, man. And
dude, I think I think it is good to make, hey, the point being that the writers are trying to make, like, intentions do matter. The intentions of your heart do matter, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point. Even if you do bad things, the intentions of if you did a bad something does matter. Like, what's your ultimate cause and everything. But I think it just misplaces here because it's like, Galadriel, why don't you ever take your own advice? Like, this entire season, you know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden she's humble and says all this humble stuff, even after that
she doesn't listen to her own advice.
Yeah.
She does say, do not take the burden of this day upon your shoulders. So,
yeah,
fair enough. It's like, yeah, Theo, you're a kid. Like, you're going to make
this is what
mistakes.
I mean. We're finally getting to what I was saying, I think, in one of the previous reviews is, like, even if you wanted to characterize Galadriel's pride like this, which I still completely disagree with, you can still dial it down some and dial down some of her wisdom, but not to where she's completely stupid, like jumping in a sea and just trying to deceive and manipulate people just for that cause. Because, again, in that passage that they take Tolkien out of context, they rip out of the context when they say that she was proud just like all of her other kinfolk, right?
Yeah.
Just to loosely say it, it's also Tolkien saying, yet she was still gentle and gracious and wise even in her young years, and so on and so forth. So just a complete miss for me.
So when he talks, he's like upset about his home, and that he's kind of like, yeah, you don't understand, like, they destroyed my home.
Yeah.
She's like trying to comfort him, and it's clearly not working.
And he says, where's the purpose in it? Where's the design in that? And she says, I cannot see it.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Here's the thing, is that they've been dropping hints for a while that she already has this sort of, like, ability to see beyond what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very, it's weird, and it's weird that it's not established, because all these other characters are acting as if that's the case, like that she can see all these things. Mm-hmm. But from, like, our perspective, because I know this because we get a lot of comments about this, they're just showing, like, oh, she's not that yet. She's just Warrior Galadriel or whatever. It's like, well, then why are all these people just trusting her for no reason? She shows up randomly in Numenor. Oh, hey, we have to go do this thing.
Even though they distrust the elves. And
She promises Muriel at the end of this that the elves are gonna, like, help them, and I'm like, what are we? Like, you lost Mount Doom and you lost Mordor, or what is officially Mordor by the end of this episode. Like, what?
Which I'm gonna die laughing if that's the only battle we get in this.
Oh, it is,
season.
Dude. Next episode's gonna be them talking. She's gonna go with Halbrand back to Lindon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the Harfoots are gonna have maybe the wizard will probably fight the evil lady wizards.
Yeah. Which those ladies are either wizards or Maiar. That's the only two things I could think of, because they don't have pointy ears, so that's dumb too and stupid as well.
So the orcs come by. Everything they say everything smells like ash.
And then they hear Theo almost, like, partly sheath his sword, and Galadriel stops him, which I think is I enjoyed that.
Yeah, because Theo's stupid, and every time the orcs come around, he can't help but make noise.
Yeah.
But don't worry, they teleport far enough away from him that it's no big deal. He has plenty of time to hide.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
And then we get back to cut back to Elrond and Durin hammering at the mountain. And then they find a whole deposit of mithril, like a whole tunnel, if you will, a cave of it within the cave. And so,
I mean, I know that they can break rocks pretty quick, but it is insane to me that in roughly, I'm kind of having to make up the timeline in my head, like 12 hours.
Yeah,
they were able to do this much work, and, like, no one.
I guess the theory is that they had already previously, from the earlier episodes, been mining right there.
Why was
is this behind, like, the curtain of mithril?
Oh, that thing from earlier? I guess so. I mean, it's not
and wasn't there some right there? Why didn't he has he already given that slither of mithril that was right there behind the curtain to Elrond?
Bro, I don't know how mining mithril works. Like, we're not really
like, there's already some mithril right there behind the curtain.
Does the crack lead to, like, a bigger deposit of it? Like, yeah. I don't know. Also, if Durin the Third didn't want them to mine this, why didn't he put guards in front of? He had to have known where this was. In fact, he does know where it is because he finds them later.
Yep.
He just randomly shows up like, oh, I'm disappointed in you. It's like, why didn't you put guards in front of it so that they couldn't do this? You didn't think that anyone would like disobey you?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
All this scene serves to suffice is that, oh, hey, look at this mithril. All of this mithril.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
He finds it, and they do like this big shot of all of it.
Yep.
And then that's
the king
when the king finds him. Okay, I am so tired of this. Stop
also,
putting these people in helmets.
Isn't Elrond banished? Wasn't the whole, we learned that, and I think before this reveal, that Elrond let Durin win in the Signa, whatever they're calling it, the fake Dwarven ceremony.
Yeah,
thing
the rock cracking ceremony. Yeah, whatever.
And apparently that's just a useless plot line. Didn't really matter. And then the king finally banishes Elrond from at least Khazad-dûm.
So
and then we get the face armor.
Yeah, so
armor.
They get caught. They kick him out. He's
then
like
Durin and his father have a
okay. So he gave him back. Dude, this mithril has passed through so many people's hands. This dumb little rock. Oh my god. But hopefully Elrond at the very least gives us some sort of explanation next episode. Like he puts it on the tree and the whole tree heals itself.
Yeah.
But then if that happens, it's like, don't you just need that little piece and you can go around healing? It might take a while, but they're elves. Just go heal everything.
They're fading regardless of the tree. Their lives are fading specifically because of mithril. So wouldn't everyone need to have that mithril?
Right.
In their
Well,
pocket?
that's where it doesn't make sense, because the whole idea and correct me where I'm wrong with this. This is just kind of based off stuff we've talked about and trying,
Yeah.
They're not meant to live in Middle Earth anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They know it's temporary, at least quote unquote, from the elven perspective. Otherwise, they fade away, which means that they die.
Yep.
So
they fade away, so they have to go back to Mon because that's where they're supposed to be.
Right, and that's why eventually they all end up leaving, and Galadriel in Fellowship, and then at the end of Return of the King, because she wanted to establish her own rule, right? Like she wanted to be like the queen of her own area. That's where they go in Fellowship. But she does know, and that's why they take Frodo and Bilbo with them to the Undying Lands at the end of Return of the King. So they're gonna go there anyway. So why does it even matter if they have the mithril? Like why? Because if they have it, why wasn't anyone murdering Bill? Why weren't any of the elves murdering Bilbo to get the mithril armor from him so that they can wear it for the rest of their lives? Like
why didn't Legolas get it from Frodo when he saw that he had it on him?
Oh no! What it really is that because Legolas was around Frodo, that he had plot armor, so he couldn't get killed by anything.
Yeah. Well,
at least in Fellowship.
Here's the thing too, is with Celeborn when they bring him in. Celeborn and Galadriel founded Aragion, the city that Celebrimbor and Elrond are in. They didn't find, by the way, they weren't the founders of Lothlorien. They just strengthened Lothlorien and eventually took over it as the rulers. So where are they going? Who knows? The showrunners surely don't.
They're making it up, man. We've known that from pretty much the beginning. I mean, even, like I was saying, even as someone who's not hyper into the lore, it's pretty obvious when you're watching this, when you're getting lore dumps and when you're getting things that's like, was that a thing?
Yeah.
Especially that Balrog and the elf in the tree, and how the mithril was quote unquote created.
I'm trying to figure out where all their money went. You know what I mean? Just how do you spend $60 million an episode and this is what we get?
Oh, their Mount Doom of cocaine. That's where it went.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I guarantee you someone took some hefty paychecks for this.
Mm-hmm.
That always happens.
And we get the scene between Elrond, both of the Durins, which by the way, bringing up Durin, there's him saying to Elrond, we have secret names and stuff. Like that's not like the whole point of Durin.
I forgot about that.
The name of Durin is important because it signifies from
kingship, right?
Yeah.
because they mentioned that before.
The reincarnation of Durin, who was the one of the first leader of the dwarves.
So
trying to put it in simple terms.
Is the secret names thing made up?
Yes.
Okay.
Again,
okay.
in a better written show, I don't mind when I understand that there are certain liberties you have to take when you're adapting something.
Sure.
But if you're not going to stick to what you're adapting and be faithful to it in any kind of way, you're going to destroy 90% of it. Then
this is more melodrama for me.
What's the whole point? Just doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's exactly what this is melodrama. And then saying the whole secret name thing and like trying his father being Durin the Fourth and then him being Durin misses the whole point of the name of Durin and what it signifies and what it could have been in the show and what they could have done with it too.
You know what else is really funny? I think Deese is the one that mentions this. I didn't know Durin had a brother, and they just they like throw that in. She's like, your father and your brother or whatever, and I was like, he has a brother? I was like, what? Does he live here?
Why haven't we been introduced? Why don't we know that yet? Yeah, I know.
It's odd. And I saw one of the things I saw, and I actually on a level to a degree, I agreed with this person. I think one of the other reasons people liked the previous episode more, and this gets to this point about Durin's brother, is because it was focused. And what they meant by that is that it specifically took place in the Southlands for the most part.
Yeah.
Again, not a good episode. What was good about that is that if you were writing something, you were more focused on characters, so you had time to establish them. Where with this show, they just spend a lot of time doing nothing every time they jump to new characters, spinning their wheels. Yeah. Oh, we're going to mine the Mithril. Oh, now we're with the elves in Linden, and we're asking about mining Mithril. And, oh, we're not going to do it. Oh, we are going to do it. Oh, no,
now we cut back to Eregion and have Celebrimbor just randomly be suspicious of Durin. And then he is in Linden, and I've known about Mithril all this time.
And then you have like the hobbits doing the same thing, sort of, where it's like every time we jump to them, it's like, oh, we're traveling. Oh, one of the hobbits is plotting to murder Nori's family. Oh, look, some wolves. Nope,
now
not
we
wolves.
Trust not Gandalf. Now we don't trust not Gandalf.
Yeah, they're
now
doing
he's
that.
Helping us. Now he's causing us problems.
Oh, now we got to go get him. Yeah.
Oh, no, now we got female not Gandalfs, and
oh yeah, have we skipped through them? I mean, they're in this episode somewhere.
Yeah, this is the part where
is it?
Yeah, we get it.
Did we miss a part where her? Oh, it's right here. Oh, I forgot that was at the end of the episode. So they argue. It takes away his princehood or whatever, which is again, it's one of those things where it's like, well, we know he becomes king anyway, so what does it really matter?
Really matter.
So we're back with Nori and her friends, and the trees have grown overnight.
Yeah,
I think is what we're supposed to be
because
told.
of Gandalf's magic.
Yeah,
and it's basically their version of Hobbiton.
Yeah, so they have like all these apples.
The Shire.
Her friend goes to get water, sees a footprint. That
massive footprint.
It's massive, and I know they're trying to do like scaling. Oh, that was something else from that Hollywood Reporter article where they were trying to say that the way that they did size differences is better. It's not. It's literally like the same.
It's worse.
If you want to make a character look smaller, you put the camera over them versus when you have a character like Elrond who is supposed to be taller.
Yes.
That's what you do. And you're right. It's not good.
When it's Elrond, you're supposed to, when you want to have someone appear smaller, you shoot above. Right. And then when you want them to be bigger, like with the hobbits, you shoot below.
No. Hobbits would be above.
Above?
Because small.
Oh, yeah. And then with Elrond.
With taller characters, it would be above. And I wonder if this is, I don't know, this might have gotten shot before a lot of this was going on, and I don't remember if you remember the stuff going on with Peter Dinklage, where he kind of screwed over everyone who, I don't know what the proper term,
Snow White.
With dwarves or people who were considered whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Peter Dinklage.
Small-heighted people.
Small-heighted people. He like screwed a bunch of people over, and now Hollywood is like seemingly afraid to have them on screen, which is something that they did in the original trilogy, is that when they needed to have bigger establishing shots so that you could see the sizes, they would have body doubles for the hobbits.
Yep.
And that's fine. And hey, it's giving those people work. So like, why is it a big deal? Yeah. But yeah, Peter Dinklage, this is what people talk about a lot of the time, where they say that people will climb the ladder and then pull it up after them. Yeah,
that's what's happening here.
So I don't think the scaling's very good. Galadriel's supposed to be really tall, and she's shorter than everybody she's around. Dude, I'm pretty sure Morphin Clark's like 5'2", which means she's shorter than me.
Yeah, and the dwarves look comical next to Elrond.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the scaling in the show,
It's not
that's
very
one
good.
of the things that I don't really like.
Because you see this footprint, and you're like, that is a massive footprint. It belongs to one of the possibly wizard ladies. I thought it was really funny that she leaves her bucket for like she sees the footprint and for some reason leaves her bucket. Like, oh no, a footprint! And she drops her bucket. Like, why wouldn't you take the bucket with you? These hobbits, the Harfoots, whatever you want to call them. They're traveling people. Everything that they take with them is important to them. Why would she do that?
Yep.
Why the bucket isn't going to stop her from going anywhere. If there's too much water in it, dump the water out and run. Yeah, it's so stupid. But they have to do it because they want to. And look how close. I guess it's like I think it's just the edit.
Yeah.
But she drops. Let's see. She drops the bucket, or she picks a little bit of water up. Yeah. Kind of. And what's so funny is like, where does she go? Right. She's right there.
She went to
sees the foot. Teleports away. Yeah. Maybe, yeah. So now, that is not how. Okay. For people who aren't aware of this is a very technical thing. This bucket goes off to our left. Okay. Now it's going to the right. You don't do that. That's not. You can't.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, the bucket going to the left and now it coming down the right. That's very jarring. Now, not everybody's going to notice that. I know.
Yeah.
That's a technical thing. This billion-dollar production, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of stuff does not need to be happening.
Yep.
So anyway, wherever some time passes, they find this bucket and they're like, "Oh, people must be around." Lady.
And then cat ears, the cat ears wizards. I do not like their costume design, by the way. And I guess this is the subtle nod that the showrunners were talking about to the, LGBTQ community, that there's going to be a subtle nod in this show to them. I'm assuming this is what it is. And then all the male characters too.
What happened? Oh, she's got her shield map on the back.
Yeah.
On her back. I was like, where is it? Yeah, I'm not into like the design of this. This like the armor stuff doesn't really bother me. Like again, we're not armor people, but yeah, I don't.
I think they're useless. And again,
it's a mystery. It's another mystery box too.
Yeah, and I think it's just like, man, guys.
But hey, listen.
When it comes to things, stay consistent with how the author's views on things. Yeah. And if you don't like that author's views on things, then don't use it. I mean, we got things in Game of Thrones, representation, LGBTQ representation, strong female characters, strong male characters, so on and so forth, Arcane, and all that's good when and where it makes sense within the world. And, it's just dumb when people try to pretend like they're not viewing this through a postmodernist lens, because certain designs of characters and how they're written,
it's gaslighting. Like they're saying no, we're not.
Since they like to use that.
No, they're not doing that. They're not doing these things. It's not really what you think. And then, or how do you know? How do you know? It's like what everyone was telling us before the show came out. Where it's like, how do you know it's going to be bad? How do you know it's going to be like this? How do you know this? And it's like, guys, there are like 10 articles. There's tons of pictures, and we're getting more information. It's not as if none of this happens before a show comes out.
Yeah, let things be for what they are. And if you don't like it, create your own thing and then bring that to light. They just can't do it. It's we had glowing reviews of Arcane.
Yeah. Well, it takes time. Even Arcane, that League of Legends had tons of lore built into the show, some of which they decided to change for the show. Mm-hmm. So the creators are the ones that are making things work, and I think what most people have considered better. They've changed certain characters, changed backgrounds of characters, right. and people have, I think, generally agreed that what Arcane has done has been better than the original, sort of like the way that they had written some of those characters when they were just video game characters.
Right.
But yeah, I totally agree. I think that, but the thing is that they can't do it.
Yeah.
Look at
they have to force their viewpoint into where it doesn't make sense, even if it's just in a subtle way.
It seems that a lot of these writers, and one of the reasons why I talk about the need to decentralize Hollywood so much is that, and people have pointed this out plenty of times, but they live in this bubble in LA, in these areas. They don't have a lot of life experience. Now, people bring up the whole writers used to be in war, and it's like, y'all, war's not good. Like, we don't need war to happen just so the writing for things can get better. You can experience life. You can go and you can be among other people, and you can see how people in different areas of the United States live, how people in other countries live. You could just do some research on YouTube and get kind of an interesting collective of different thought processes and the way people see the world and the way that they think about things. And you could potentially add that into your writing. But like you were saying, because they live in this bubble, because they think that the world revolves the way that it does in the area code that they live in LA, this is the kind of stuff that you get a lot of the time. And it's like, it's where that problem comes in that we were talking about earlier, where the writing is misunderstood because they can't see it through the lens of someone who lived in the 50s.
Yeah. I'm not going to take Arcane, for example, just so people are clear.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take Arcane and make a Christian character. Because it's just, you know what I mean? It doesn't.
Well, and that's the thing, is that you could
subtly hint
here's
to
the thing, is that the writers of something like Arcane, because of the way the world is set up, because they do this in stuff, you could have a character who has a strong religious background. And their character is designed based on those certain things. It's not impossible. The problem is, and this is where a lot of Christian writing for movies, television, whatever goes wrong, is that they take that C.S. Lewis approach a little too much to heart.
Yeah,
where
heavy-handed.
It's too allegorical.
Yeah.
Which people can argue about the C.S. Lewis
very
thing.
on the nose.
It is, and it's not bad, but at least C.S. Lewis put it in the guise of a fantasy world, and it was just very much, the allegories were there.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Even if Tolkien didn't like it, again, it's a writing tool. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Different writers have different things that they like in the way that they do certain things.
Right.
You can have characters that do that. You can look at a character, you can read through something and be like, okay, I really like this character. We need to be able to establish them a certain way on screen. Let's add this little thing here. It's not fully changing the character. We're just going to add little things here. But you're right. I think allegory.
I think C.S. Lewis put more depth to his characters than just strictly just centering them around
those. They weren't one dimensional for sure.
Yeah, one dimensional, and that's what we get with a lot in Hollywood is characters that are one dimensional. Like they just everything revolves around their skin color or their gender or their orientation or their creed or their religion. Not even religion, because they don't really do that. But you know what I mean? It's just, that's it.
Well, if they do, they're like a massive villain.
Yeah, exactly. And that's their only. There's no nuance and depth to it. They're not multi-layered.
Yeah. And and in a different way, you get that in this, where it's like Arondir, his only personality trait is that he likes Bronwyn.
That's it.
You have the wizard, who's just like completely. He's a character, but that's about it. He can do some stuff. His complete
character is he's stupid.
Yeah,
he can learn things.
He likes these small people for some reason.
Yeah.
Nori, her entire character is wanting to break out from the mold of her people. Her friend, her character is I like to eat.
And trying to stop Nori.
Yeah. Galadriel is completely one-dimensional with her vengeance plot.
Yep.
There's no depth to her beyond that. Halbrand, I don't. If I'm being generous with Halbrand, it's like, well, he likes to smithy. He's a smithy.
Yep.
He's kind of the king of the Southlands,
I guess. He's just there.
This is what I'm talking about. It's not the same. And I would have to say
Durin loves Elrond, and Elrond loves Durin and needs Mithril. And Gil-galad needs Mithril, and Celebrimbor needs Mithril.
Who are we missing? Yeah. We haven't even seen
Adar is a little bit more nuanced.
Isildur's fake sister. in a while. Like, she just exists.
Doesn't matter.
Kevin wants to not go to war and then blows up a ship because of it, and it doesn't. It's. Anyway, we're almost done. We're almost done with this.
In this scene, we get Nori waving down the either wizards or Maiar, and
the heroes of the episode.
Yeah, he went this way, and then they, teleport to him.
I love how they just know that.
Yeah,
like he's that way.
And they teleport to her, and they blow fire and destroy Hoppington,
which is the best scene in the episode as far as I'm concerned. When they light this place on fire, I was like, yes, finally. It's also really fun. Again, you want to talk about no stakes. None of the Harfoots die from this.
Nothing happens. So apparently, some people are supposed to die in the next episode, though. We'll see.
Why did no one die? Like, maybe I guess some of the Numenorians did die in the big battle, but it wasn't anything of consequence.
So the OG Shire gets caught in flames so they can build back better.
Yeah.
They're like, an allegory to the Build Back Better plan from Joe Biden. And
wait, did we miss the scene where? We didn't talk about it. I don't remember where it was. Where? No, it's coming up. We haven't gotten there yet. Wow, a lot of the weird stuff happens in the last 10 minutes of this episode.
We got this fort from the Numenorians, which I guess is on the other side of the mountains that they had to cross, which they don't properly show in the show. But
they're way far away from Mount Doom now.
Yeah. And so they released a horse because we got in the
he'll find Isildur
previous episode because we got in the previous episode that it fills everything that Isildur fills.
Yeah.
And it's going to save Isildur just like the horse saved Aragorn in the trilogy.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh, dude, I'm finished.
It's gonna bend down. It's gonna bend down and kneel.
Thank God there's only one more episode. Yeah, Isildur's gonna wake up and he's gonna be washed up on the shore somehow.
Yeah.
It's just wait, how'd he get here?
The Sea of Numen.
This is the first time that Galadriel actually realizes that she probably screwed something up and people are gonna be mad about her. Funny thing is, it's Elendil's the only person who actually is aware of how crap she is at this point. And that he doesn't even really they have no conversation where he's like, after everything that we've done for you, it's you led us into this disaster.
Yep.
What and at least he can question why did we follow you?
Yep.
What was any of this for?
Nothing.
And
we just get
he's
mad.
Yeah. He's pissed at her.
Understandably.
And Muriel is just nah, everything's fine.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Even though most of my army, fake army got, or I shouldn't say fake, I should say weak army got destroyed. And then we get all these people who did get damaged by
how did that guy, I don't even know if we can show that.
By the volcano. And we get, just to go ahead and clear it, and then we can talk about what you want. We get a bunch of fake mystery build up. Is this Bronwyn? Is this Bronwyn?
Oh, yeah, that crap's so stupid. Why did these couple, there's 10, 12 people in here who got major damage by the super volcano? My favorite part, though, is when we see Bronwyn finally. She looks like she took a shower. She's a little dusty. Look at her, how great her hair looks in this shot, dude.
She looks no damage. And then we get a cut of Arondir and Sophia's father's. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They still haven't shown the ears, which is the running theory, and it's why is that a mystery? Why is that going to be a reveal?
Yeah. So yeah, why did they survive? Who knows? From the other humans, and then we get the blind.
Now she has her thing on.
Now it's okay for the people to know that she's blind. But in the scene before, it wasn't. We couldn't show them, but now we can show them.
What was the because I'm assuming it was a city. Is it the only thing that came to mind, and I legitimately don't know because he mentions it somewhere in here that they're taking the Southlanders to a specific area. Is that Gondolin? Is that where they're headed?
Oh, where they're taken? Oh, no.
I don't remember exactly. Let's see. It says garrison remain behind to escort them to safe settlements. Let's see if we can find it. Because, you know, all of our hero characters. Oh, yeah. All he does, he's like super passive aggressive with her. Let us put this land behind our sails.
So, I mean, they're in the, like, sort of the land of Gondor. Like, that's where, you know, they're supposed to be on the other side of the mountains because it's like mountains that separate Mordor from Gondor.
Yeah.
Right? A mountain pass. But
here's I gotta clip this for the
I'm not really sure though, because it seemed like based off of the last episode they went completely around, went right past the Sea of Newman, and then went up into Ordruin, or you know, Mordor.
Maybe it's coming up, but I swear they mention it, like they give some detail as to where the Southlanders are headed, and the only thing
they're kind of like in the area of Osgiliath.
Okay. Well,
that kind of like location.
Not that it matters where they are, because they can just teleport by the next episode and be and be like, oh, we should name this
where
place.
They need to be. Yeah.
So the Harfoots are picking up. Nori's sad that he's lost. What we believe to be Lenny Henry's wife has this line
where someone who knows the trail should go.
We can't forget we stay true to each other no matter how the path winds or how steep it gets. We face it with our hearts even bigger than our feet. And we just keep walking.
Aphorism.
And then going off trail now alone. We left enough
female
folk
Frodo
behind.
has a change of heart.
Yeah. You girls aren't going anywhere. Blah, blah, blah. I'm just trying to find that line. We might if a trail finder were to go with them. So, like, she's completely changed her attitude. She, like, 2 episodes ago, I'm pretty sure it was 2 episodes ago, she literally wanted to take the wheels off their cart and leave them to die. And now for some reason,
major disaster, she's like, I've had a change of heart.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. He grew some apples for them. So, like, she sees the potential for having someone like him around.
His benefit.
Yeah. But it's just such a weird... What it does, if you really think about it, is it makes her come off as selfish, because the only reason she now wants him around is because it's for her survival.
Yeah.
Because now he's a benefit, whereas her family before was not.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lenny Henry says...
or Matava says, what's the good of living? What's the point of living if we're not living good? And then he says... You know,
Malva, just once it would be grand if you weren't right all the time.
When was she right?
Oh, when she wanted to leave Nori's family behind to die. Like, and what's crazy is, like, is she the one in this community who has influenced all of the people who have died?
Yeah.
Because he's the leader, right?
Yes, supposed to be. Supposedly.
Right. I'm just saying, it's a little
but
suspect.
He's not strong without her.
Right. So they go off. Someone was mentioning the way that Poppy was walking. Oh, whatever. It's a little hot. It seems like maybe it's a little overacting there, but I don't really care.
Yeah. I'm not going to nitpick like that.
Yeah, let's see.
Personally.
She believes that she'll keep her promise.
Yeah, and come back. And then they're going to head to... Yeah.
Bones have been set. Wounds have been bound. We can travel. And they said... Where is it? Where will you go? An old Numenorian colony by the mouth of the Anduin.
What was it, like Palad something?
Pelargir.
Pelargir?
Hang on. I can actually probably play this for like 2 seconds.
An old Numenorian colony by the mouth of the Anduin. Pelargir, they called it.
Pelargir.
Yeah, no, I'm not really. That's their own. No. Yep, it's there. It's on the mouth of the Anduin.
Okay.
Pelargir.
So they just picked a place?
Yeah, they just picked a place.
Okay.
I just checked the mountain. Or the map.
They're like, what's close? What's close by? A fresh start.
An old Numenorian colony is what they're going with, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, maybe that'll have something.
Why wasn't that mentioned beforehand?
Anywhere
Like when
was
they were
better.
Traveling to it, wouldn't they? You know,
Anywhere is better for them than where they were
and then
to begin with.
Ar-Pharazôn was saying that he wanted to set up, the reason why he was supporting this
trade,
is trade and all that stuff. But they had an old Numenorian colony. Why wouldn't they just gone there to get that going?
It's still possible. I guarantee what's going to happen is that Al-Pharazôn she's going to go back in the next episode. They're going to hear about the disaster. They'll probably get some numbers. Again, I might be being a little too generous to the people who wrote the show. We'll get some numbers maybe about how many of the Numenorians have died and how much of a cost it was. And then Al-Pharazôn will be pissed too because the trade route and what they had planned to do in the Southlands may not come to fruition now because there's only a few of the people from the Southlands left. Maybe not. Maybe something else will happen there. But it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they kind of explain this last episode. I at this point I'm more interested, and it's why it's so funny to me with the whole volcano thing that happened in this. I'm more interested to see how they try to write themselves out of situations to keep the plot moving forward than I am interested in anything else about this show. I couldn't believe, dude, I will never get over this. Well, I will eventually, but I will never get over the volcano thing. It's
so
unbelievable. I was
bad.
waiting the whole episode for at least a line where Galadriel goes, well, heat doesn't work the same when evil is present or something. You know what I mean? To at least do a callback. They do a callback to them on the boat.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's at least one other callback in the episode to something earlier in the show. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, it's ridiculous. So this is where we get Halbrand, right? Because they talk about him and he's got this massive wound that, again, how? What was this from? This looks like a sword. Did he get stabbed? Did he get did a roof fall on him and he get stabbed with some wood, or
what happened to him?
It would be nice to know. I mean, is this not real? Is he messing with everyone because he's a deceiver, because he's really Sauron? I just, come on.
The only thing I remember about that port that they're going to, or that place they're going to, that colony, was that I think that was the port of Gondor, and it became a refuge for the faithful, I want to say, when they left Numenor after its decline. So this is interesting. So that that's a few thousand years into the Second Age that was made. So I guess we're all of a sudden 2,000 years.
We're 10 years away.
Because there's so many things I'm confused on, because Numenor seems like they're supposed to be its peak, but it seems like crap. They don't have a standing army. And
we're 10 years away from them all fighting Sauron.
But now they're supposed to. I guess they're supposed to be at their peak, and now they're on their decline. I don't know. It's all confusing.
Even if you're on your decline, you're going to have a standing army that's probably pretty good. That doesn't take away from that. The fall of Rome, I mean, their army was probably still good when, all of that started to happen, or even in the middle point between the beginning of the fall to the end of the fall. It's goofy, dude. So he has an infected wound, from what we're being told, right?
Yeah.
They give them we get these little smirks. Did you notice this?
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, something's going on.
Well, hinting at a romance between them.
Look at him smirk. And then this little smirk. It's just it happens for a second.
And then cut.
And then he's good.
Yeah, walking,
no big deal.
Just a little bit of side to side limp.
He's gonna ride on a horse for however long it takes them to get back.
None of these people are mad at Galadriel, even though she led them there. And they leave.
Straight to the Southlands.
To our king. And then we cut back to Durin the Fourth, I should say. And he finds, Durin the Third and Disa, they're talking. She's like, we're going to be the rulers. His the king is just dumb, right?
Yeah. People have been referring to her as a Sith Lord.
And then this is where we get the brother remark and all that stuff, and other dwarf lords agree with you, Durin. So you should, we should totally do this
again. We have not seen any of the other dwarf lords that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. We're in episode 7, but because they have to rush through things instead of building this up, they're like, well, the other dwarf lords agree with you. It's like, well, that's great. Who are they? How does that work?
And Khazad-dûm now just seems kind of bland. Again, the grandeur is just missing.
There's no grandeur.
It's supposed to be in its splendor, right?
We are going to dig. And he's like, then they make out.
Yes, ma'am, you're right. And then we get the scene with his father finding the leaf and tossing it, and then the big
leaf,
reveal.
I love how this leaf just absolutely flies way down here. I didn't really care for the way that it looked like it was in an egg. Yeah, I know it's its wings. It looks like it's in an egg of some sort. Look at the shadow.
It was supposed to be sleeping, hibernating, right?
The shadow.
It wakes up now because of the leaf.
Roar! We saw that in a shot from one of the trailers.
And then here's the worst part.
I
don't know if worst, but the dumbest part is Adar with all, wall drag and some orcs.
Oh, yeah, he made it. He's alive.
Yeah. What should we call this place that no longer exists in Adar? Instead of anyone saying Mordor, they just cut to this bad description. Like, that's, at least if you were going to do it, you would think you would just put the name Mordor up there.
It disappears. Mordor. It looks so cheap too, dude. It
really does.
And that's it. That's the end of the episode.
Oh, man.
One more.
Freaking Doritos land over here.
Yeah, people need to understand, like, it really was that orange in the episode. Like, if you haven't watched it, it's really bad too, depending on the screen that you're watching it on.
Man, I was just I'll do more of a lore break on the next episode. I just really could care less this episode.
Dude, they gave a random elf.
This one really destroyed the lore, but I'm trying to wait until we get to episode 8 to really get into that kind of stuff more so than I already have.
They gave a random elf credit for naming Mordor and creating Mordor
instead of Sauron. Unless they're gonna reveal Adar to really be Sauron, but we know that he's not now, so
yeah.
It's probably Waldreg. Waldreg is Sauron.
I got nothing left. I mean, at this point, I can't be bothered to care. It's hard even trying to find some of the details now to work through because I just can't be bothered to care.
Yeah, I just don't care. That's what I was when I watched it. I'm like, I don't really want to watch this a second time so I can really get into the details and everything. I typically take notes. The last 2 episodes, I haven't taken any notes. Haven't really done anything because it's just so bland and boring.
I already have. Joseph and I both have full-time jobs where it's like life is already sort of like grungy enough without having to watch this garbage over again. Now I will scan through. So like. I record all the episodes and I scan through them to look for stuff a lot of the time. But it's gotten to the point where you almost don't have to. There's enough that going through it once, you're like, yep, Volcano stuff's garbage. It's like, why are they doing this? Why are the characters acting this way? Like we've spent enough time going over this stuff that at this point it's like, oh yeah, they're still acting dumb. It's I don't know. I mean, there's not as much to break down as far as like action in this one, so that
there's not. And the problem with this prequel is that we pretty much kind of know
where it's headed.
That's going to happen. Yeah, like not Gandalf and not Sauron and Mordor and Mount Doom and everything. And so at least if you're going to do a prequel, you got to do it interesting. And it's not that you can't and highlight these things, even though we know like ultimately what's happening, right?
Yeah.
The last battle or whatnot, and with Isildur doing this whole is Isildur dead? To copy and paste Lord of the Rings trilogy with Aragorn getting saved by his horse. It's just to show that connection from why Aragorn got saved and horses and stuff.
And there's no real connection to it. And then they're like repurposing lines from the books, and it just
everything falls flat because the writing's bad, and maybe we wouldn't be as critical if it was better. But
I mean, if it was
just when you're $1 billion show,
if it was a competent production, and then the worst,
there's things we could overlook.
Sure, and you know, a lot of the lore people would probably be really pissed. Still, not all of them. And if a lot of the lore people were like, well, it's not really Lord of the Rings, even if it's written really well, it's like, okay, I mean, that could be, dude, I would take that as a starting point, is like something that's really well made, even if it's not accurate to Lord of the Rings over what we got. I mean, it's just the whole thing seems so lazy to me, man. It's not interesting.
Sterile.
I'm like dozing during scenes, like when Durin, like the second time I think Durin and his like Durin the Fourth's talking to the third, I've just been like, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like I can't.
And people keep saying, well, if you don't like it, why do you keep watching it? And it's like, again, if we, you know, the purpose of our YouTube that we're doing here is that we're
breaking them down.
Yeah, we're breaking down movies and TV shows and explaining, hey, why this works, why that doesn't, scene by scene and stuff. If we weren't doing that, we would have stopped probably watching after episode 2.
And looking to do like critical reviews of stuff, it's entertaining in its own right.
Yeah.
The show's not good, but that stuff is fun. It's like we got one episode left, and it's the show's starting to get grating. Like I don't think I would have made it past episode 3 if we weren't doing this.
Yeah.
Because it was the same thing with Wheel of Time. Because I knew you weren't going to watch Wheel of Time, and I didn't know enough about the lore from Wheel of Time to do that. But I was like, well, I'll watch a little bit of it because I'm curious how it turned out, and it'll be a good marker for how Rings of Power will probably turn out.
Yeah.
I got through the 3 episodes that they originally dropped, and I was like, I'm good. I don't need to see more of this.
And that's how it works. And that's why Amazon really hasn't released any numbers to see episode by episode what things look like.
Yeah, they seem like they're in panic mode
big time. That's why they try to get ahead out with these interviews releasing from the showrunners prior to these episodes releasing.
Yeah, every time they do this stuff, it seems like it's damage control for the way things are going. So yeah, I think a lot of the information that comes out after the show is finished, and as we ramp into season 2 and they start releasing things, or people start dropping from the project for different reasons, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It definitely will be.
So, all right, everybody. Thank you once again for listening to or watching our episode 7 review of Rings of Power. We'll be back next week with the season finale. And then don't forget, every Monday, as long as things are good in our own lives, we'll be live streaming our podcast episodes. We're still going to be reviewing House of the Dragon. We'll just combine 7 and 8 this week. We're going to be talking about Isom a little bit, or at least I'll be giving my initial thoughts on Eric July's comic. There's some other stuff we're talking about too. I think there's some Rings of Power related stuff. IGN giving the last episode a 10 out of 10. We might talk about that Hollywood Reporter article a little bit more too.
More in depth.
And then, I'm sure some other stuff's going to come up. Wakanda Forever, new trailer came out. I'm still confused about that movie a little bit. But anyway, thank you all for listening. Until next time, take it easy.
Take it easy.